Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Golden Convergence. Today, we're going to answer the question, are other people fondling your fries? You might need a Minnow Pod. And going to introduce Yona Belfort. Yona, how are we doing today, buddy?
I'm good. Great.
So, have other people fondled your fries before?
Um,
What does that mean?
yeah, I think so. It means that I'll order something like on DoorDash or Uber Eats, and it'll be waiting for me, and then maybe not even like on purpose, somebody else will come and think that my order is their order, and then open it up and see what's in there. And I don't know if they're touching the food inside, but uh that's what we mean by fondling the fries, and that happens all the time. And why wouldn't it?
Well, and
Like,
this is
I want to.
this is a byproduct of, so it's really, as we've entered into DoorDash, Uber Eats generation, people are more and more ordering from restaurants, and then, specifically apartment buildings or hotels or any multi-unit complexes, where you're seeing food being just dropped off in a lobby. And that's why I say other people fondling your fries. There comes a gap when your food might be just sitting around and nobody's there, or you're not, the delivery driver's there and you're not there, and this time period. So you've come up with a solution, and here it is.
That's it.
That's it.
That's the one.
A smart food pod to put in the lobby of businesses. And is this something that is it sounds like a great idea, but how's it going? Do people want these? Are you installing them? Is it growing?
It is growing, yeah. And people do want them. It's a really interesting thing. It's one of the it's a new product. We are the only ones focusing on lobbies at properties. So we call that last mile food delivery. There is competition in the restaurants, which is first mile food delivery. So, for lockers that get installed at a chain of restaurants, and customers come into that restaurant and can retrieve their order. There is some competition in that channel. But as far as last mile, and that's when the delivery driver comes into the property and drops it off at the front desk or wherever, that's our focus. And there isn't, at least as of today, direct competition for us. So there is a lot of education happening for us to let people know that we exist. So as you might imagine, when you come out with something new, people may not know about your solution. You could have the best solution to whatever the problem is, but if they don't know your solution exists, then they don't buy it. So that is one of our challenges currently. So we're figuring out ways to market our solution to make sure that the people who are our potential customers, our prospects, are aware that there's a solution out there. That's a big challenge for us. That's a big challenge for any first mover in any category. But we are.
There's so many potential install locations. The market is absolutely enormous for this. Yeah. So this isn't like we have to get 80% market share. It's like, no, if you get 1% of market share of hotel lobbies and apartment building lobbies, this honestly it makes sense. There's a safety element to it too. So I guess the question is, how do you get in touch with the landlords and the decision makers of multi-unit apartment buildings and hotels all across America, and get the distribution of these?
That is a great question, and to be perfectly honest, we're still figuring that out. It is enormous, as you mentioned, Kyle. There is a tremendous number of properties that could benefit from our solution. Making them aware that our solution exists is a challenge, but also it takes about 60 days for properties to adopt our solution and notify their tenants and residents and put a new policy in place that all food deliveries need to go to the Minnow Pod. And so there's a little bit of a adjustment period, as you might imagine, for any new behavior, right? Like it's much easier for us if there's an existing policy in place that says all food deliveries need to go to the main front desk and delivery drivers are not allowed up the elevator or escalators.
Safety too. It's like you
lowers,
don't want people, delivery drivers, necessarily going in through the building and all around it. Like, you know,
no.
it's 99.99% of the time there's probably not going to be a problem, but that 0.01%, like, you know, come on. These
Agreed. So it's really interesting when you have a package locker like an Amazon Hub or their Luxor One locker. Those are for packages. You get trained delivery people, whether they work for FedEx, UPS, USPS. They show up in that building every day with 100 packages and put them in those parcel lockers. Now, a key difference between package lockers and food, what we've created, which is a food pod, it's a food locker, is every DoorDash driver or every food delivery order, whether it's DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats, or a local restaurant, is delivered individually. So if you get 100 food deliveries, which is not uncommon, it's a lot, but every one of those food deliveries is delivered by a separate person. So to your point, Kyle, if you really don't want all 100 food delivery drivers going into your building, you want to keep them in the lobby, and that's what our solution.
And talk about, like, you know, the ease of use, like, you know, here's the DoorDash, like, how does it work for them to, like, you know, how do you secure the pod so that, you know, the delivery driver can put it in, but then the customer or the consumer can take it out?
So we've spent years actually simplifying it for the same reason I just mentioned. These are they're hustlers, like they are working their tail off, and we give them our heroes are these delivery drivers. Like they are they're working hard, they're cranking out orders, and I don't know if you saw recently that actually there was I think a New York Times piece on it, but in the recent snowstorm, I think it snowed some crazy amount of, it was a huge snowstorm. I was like a couple feet of snow fell in New York City. And I want to say the mayor said that there was like basically don't go on the streets. There was a freeze of everybody being able to travel with the exception of two categories. And that was emergency workers, like the people who work at the hospitals, and the food delivery drivers. So it's really interesting. Like these people who are delivering for the DoorDashes of the world and the Grubhubs of the world are really quite critical. And we see them and they don't get a lot of like celebration or support. And we see them, and we've done over 700,000 food deliveries. And we're when you ask after they've used our product, if you say, hey, listen, DoorDash driver, what do you think? They very regularly ask us to put them in all buildings because it allows them. They don't want to go up the elevator or escalators. They don't want to have to wait around in the lobby for people to come down to retrieve their order. They want to walk into a building, press a couple buttons in their native language, have a door pop open, put it in there, close it, and leave and go on to their next delivery.
So how do you get in touch with the delivery drivers? Like, how do you make that connection? Because like I said, they're kind of the champions, right? I feel like they could be, you know, some of the best ambassadors, evangelists, and salespeople for the pods.
They are awesome, and they have helped us identify buildings that could really use our units. So they're easy, right? Like the only unfortunate part is the delivery drivers aren't the ones buying our units. So it's a really interesting situation, which ties back to our earlier conversation. Our users aren't buying the product. It's a unique situation. So we have 3 users. We have the delivery drivers we just mentioned. We have the front desk staff if it's a front, if it's a staff front desk. And by the way, they love it as well because they no longer are part of the chain of custody of the food. So they don't have to worry about it. They don't have to look at it. They don't have to smell it. All of these things add to their daily list of to-dos. So it essentially,
and then does the pod prevent smell seepage?
It does, yeah. I mean, it doesn't eliminate it. It's not a hermetically sealed cubby. It's not sealed, and we have sealed them in the past, but it turns out that doesn't work. You don't want to do that because there's condensation issues if you do that. But so they love it, right? They're like, great. If this thing can manage the food deliveries, secure the food deliveries, notify, and we'll get to the notification in a minute. That's fantastic for me. I don't have to worry about it. I can worry about other things that like focusing on tenants or focusing on residents and connecting with them, helping them with other issues. And then lastly, you've got the tenants or residents. And there's a really lovely benefit of it. In addition to kind of like preventing the fondling of the fries, which is really nice. They get their order without other people touching it, and they get their complete order. So when you put them on a shelf or a table, sometimes just by accident, stuff goes missing. They don't get their complete order. That's frustrating. There's also another wonderful benefit, and that is we call it asynchronous handoff. And that's a pretty awful but apt description of the benefit of being in the shower or busy when your delivery driver shows up on the property. They give you a call and you can't come down to meet them. So what that allows you to do is they can deliver to our Minnow Pod in the lobby. They can leave the property and I can come down 5 minutes or 10 minutes later. That's nice. Like a shower is nice. But I would say that roughly half, and many women, have zero interest in meeting the delivery driver in the lobby. And I don't blame them. So this creates an opportunity for an improved experience for those tenants and residents as well. So those are the 3 categories of users. You've got the delivery drivers, you've got the staff, and you got the residents and tenants. Okay. You asked me earlier how they get a notification. There's 2 ways. Our preferential, like the way I would recommend, is called secure pickup. And when this gets rolled out at the property, there's an opportunity to sign up. It's a simple and free sign up. You provide us with a phone number and your name. And when the food gets delivered, we send a text message is sent. We send it to that tenant or resident who signed up for secure pickup. In addition to that, it actually hides your name. It puts, instead of your name, it puts the last 4 digits of your phone number so you can identify it during pickup. So that's called secure pickup. Not everybody signs up for that, whether they not interested, it can't be bothered, whatever it is. There's an easier way, which doesn't require sign up, which uses your name. And you don't get an SMS, a text message sent from our system that alerts you. Instead, you just get the native delivery alert. So like if a DoorDash driver comes and delivers to this Minnow Pod in whatever building, they're going to take a picture of your order in the locker, and then they're going to send that picture to you. I believe they're required to take that picture. And they're going to send that picture to you to say, hey, listen, I just dropped this off. And so you get a notification through your native food delivery platform. That's how the notifications work.
And I mean, I would imagine like this is something like DoorDash and Uber Eats. These guys would love too. Like what do they offer something like this?
They are aware of it. We've had conversations with them. I think they are interested and aware of last mile food delivery. And I believe DoorDash just came out with a autonomous delivery robot. Now, keep in mind, I think that autonomous delivery robots are really cool, but they don't do what we're doing, which is
sketchy, but it's not the,
well, it can get you from so you got to focus on warm weather destinations, which is why these robots are typically moving around in areas like San Francisco, Southern California, Miami. That's because right now, if you look outside where I live, there's tons of snow, and there's no way those robots are going to be successful. But they do work quite well, or whatever, I don't know. They work from the restaurant to the site, but getting through a secure couple doors to get into the property, into the lobby, is a challenge for those robots. And where we're focused is once you get through security in those lobbies, and sometimes we are in vestibules, actually a lot of vestibules, so you don't actually need to get through security, but we are inside, and there's a lot of
reasons. Vestibule, that's like, that's between the doors.
Yes, our unit is not an outdoor rated unit. Our unit is an indoor rated unit. So it can live anywhere where it's HVAC controlled. Those vestibules typically are HVAC controlled. So exactly. So you go through a set of doors, and then our unit could be there, but it's in front of the locked
building
doors.
locked. Yeah.
The second. Yeah, exactly. So we're in both. We're in the lobby past those double set of doors, and we're in between sets of doors as well.
How many units have you deployed?
I think as of this week, I just installed our 225th unit yesterday at the Hampton Inn Seaport in Boston. So our kind of core customer base is commercial real estate. So that's in residential high-rise buildings as well as commercial high-rise buildings, office buildings. The vast majority of those units are in those two. And now we're starting to see interest and installations in hospitals. Houston Methodist is one of our customers, and they have, I don't know how many units, 9 or 10 units. And yeah, we have interest from Boston area hospitals as well. And I hope to get into some of those. I think once the hospitals start to realize, kind of like what I said before, it's like this first mover advantage, disadvantage. When they start to realize there's a better way to do this, a way that secures the food, a way that hides the food and prevents odors, and really cleans up the lobby, secures every delivery, and makes sure that people get their entire order securely. Whether we are the ones to benefit and be in all of these buildings or somebody else is, it's only a question of time. So I hope it's Minnow. And I hope it's our Minnow Pods. If it's not, it's going to be somebody else. To me, it's pretty clear that
it's a huge market. It's just a huge market. This is a necessary solution. They're like, this is almost something that could become like, regulated or like, demanded by municipalities, by like there's a certain level that regulation could be involved because this is food safety and security, and this is also protecting individuals. So I could definitely see that, and like especially in these larger cities too, like New York, Boston, Miami, Houston, like where there's a lot of condensed, and the amount of food that's being delivered to apartment buildings and to multi-unit residential, like consistently. I
agree with you, Kyle. Like all of those cities, we're already in all of those cities. Mm-hmm. So we're once
people start seeing it too, then once people start seeing it, then it's like, or they use it. Oh, this is great, and that's why I wonder, like, there might be an angle with the drivers, like like you said, these guys are hustlers. They're hustlers, like
and I feel like they're under celebrated. I feel like it's just it just feels like we talked about like DoorDash and
do you have a sticker? Like, do you have a way for drivers to get in touch with you?
We do. At the end of the flow, they take they can take a survey and get in touch with us, and we collect their feedback. I want to go back just a half step, Kyle, and talk to you a bit about the safety part of it, because that is I would love it if they were regulated, and you're not. I agree with you. I think they should be regulated, because the table and shelves They just don't cut it. And it's not just the fact that it looks like a table of trash and it smells and it's not secure. It's also because you have a population in the building that could order whatever, let's say sushi. Let's say it's a pregnant lady who orders sushi. She orders the sushi and she falls asleep and wakes up the next day and can come down to the table and just take the order and eat the food and get a foodborne illness. That is like a worst case scenario. But the exposure of those tables and shelves in the lobbies is high because it doesn't actually send notifications or prevent somebody from doing that. So one of the major, if not the most important benefit of our solution is when food goes into the cubby, we know who's put it in the cubby, we know when they've put it in the cubby, and we send a notification to say, hey, listen, your order's been delivered. 2 hours later, we say, hey, listen, your order's been in, it's been here for 2 hours, you should come pick it up. And at 4 hours, we notify them that their order has expired. And what that means is they can still come down and get it, but we require that they check a box. It's a unique box. First of all, when they pick up, their cubby turns red. It goes from green to red, so they know it flags them. And then they can't retrieve that sushi. She's not going to be able to retrieve the sushi unless she checks a little box that says, your order has been inside of the cubby for 4 hours. We want to make sure that you're aware that food that sits around for beyond 4 hours has the potential to have foodborne illness. To release liability, check this box for both the property and Minnow Technologies. They can check the box. They have to check the box, and then their cubby will open. So that is a major, major difference between the inexpensive but dumb shelves and tables and our smart Minnow Pods.
And is there for the business, because it's going to be the residential, it's going to be the buildings that pay for these ultimately. So what's the value prop for them? This is just a more convenient, better solution, or is there some way that the unit pays itself off, or is this something that you be a leader and you're going to stand out, you might get 2 extra tenants because you have this pod solution, like people coming in, oh, you know what, this is great, or we can raise rent $10 a month on everybody because we have the pod solution now.
Yeah, so it's hard for us to quantify, and it is not the users purchasing the solution, which is challenging. Anytime you have a user that's not the customer is hard. But I think it's all of the above, Kyle. I think it's when you have an $8 million lobby that you've just renovated. And what, are you going to put a table in there that has food deliveries? No. So we get a lot of new construction or renovation projects that are they've had enough. They're like, we're not putting a table or shelves or having the end of the front desk be a drop zone for all of these food deliveries. It doesn't look good in the lobby. It doesn't smell good in the lobby. It's not a good experience for our tenants or residents. And so really it's, and we do work with property managers often to pitch to their management to get budget approval. But it's ownership of the building, recognizing that a table is not secure, exposes them to the foodborne illness liability we talked about. And also basically it's not a real solution. Like, it's not civilized. You want civilized food delivery. We have a solution for that.
And it's an opportunity as well to say, like, we love you and we care about you, and we've installed this for all of you to enjoy. And I'd imagine too, like, the bigger the building, do you have units where there's more than one pod?
We do. Yep. So we have units,
custom enclosures.
We do sometimes in the build outs, they make a custom kind of alcove that has power for the units. And one of the things that we customize as well is each of these buildings is very proud, and should be, of their lobby and their experience. And a lot of times it's these beautiful like interior designs, you know, that are just, you walk in there and you're like, this is magnificent. And what we do is we work with the marketing team often to get the brand guidelines and some imagery and logos. And we say, here are 3 options or graphic mock-ups. So we do a lot of wrapping of these units so that they marry well with the lobby and interior. And what that does is it promotes the placement of the unit so it's closer to the main entrance. So I mentioned earlier that there's a policy. We work really well when there's a policy that all food delivery should go to the Minnow Pod. We also talk about placement. And the closer to the main entrance or where these delivery drivers, you know, you got 50 of these delivery drivers coming in every day. If they can see it as they come through without having to walk some maze to get to the mail room, that takes a lot of burden off of the front desk or the staff of the building to tell them where it is. So it also helps us sell units, right? Like we're celebrating the interior design and the brand of our customers. They get excited about it and they put it in a sweet spot in their lobby right by the entrance.
I could imagine, like, you know, if you ask any, like, you go to Miami to, like, you know, one of the big residences, like, you know, the number one headache that, or one annoyance that front desk has is that food. And that
50 people are walking in.
Constant stream of food, like constantly. They're just nonstop. It's coming, it's sitting there. There's multiple things, like, you know, potentially on a table. It stinks. Like, oh, who can eat that?
So we're doing thousands. I think we're now in over 8,000 deliveries a week. So that's what we do. That we take that burden off of the property staff and we manage it for them in a way that is actually safer, more organized, and a better experience for their communities.
I love it. And so what's so I guess it's, we're doing thousands a week. I guess his goal is, let's get to, you said, what was the total cumulative?
So we've done, as of, I think last week, it was 706,866 pickups.
So a million is coming up.
Yeah. So we're approaching 1 million. And I think the next big, 1 million is our next big milestone. That's super exciting for us. And you talked to me a bit about, or asked a bit about kind of DoorDash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats, and if they're aware of us. They are aware of us, but I think that for us to really make an impact with them and for them to really take note is when we have a larger fleet of units deployed. So that's really valuable real estate in these buildings. Like if we can deploy quickly enough and get enough units out there, we have all this data flowing into our units. It's like each one of these Minnow Pods is like a little neuron. We collect all of the information who's delivering to that building. So like you might imagine like a DoorDash is interested in, it's a war out there. It's a food delivery war basically between all of these companies. And we collect that information to know not just what DoorDash is doing in that building, but we also know what all the other food delivery companies are doing in that building because we collect that information. So you might imagine that having this information, even if it's internal and not external, they know on a building by building basis how they're performing. And they can then promote on a building by building basis to improve their performance at underperforming properties. And so it's all about data. We have the data. And if we can have a large enough fleet, that is when they'll start to take note.
And let's say I make some soup and I want to make it for my neighbors. Like, could I put just some soup in there? Like, or do you have to be a delivery driver? Can anybody, like, you know, put someone and then assign it to, you know, that phone number? And then what happens if nobody ever claims it too? I guess that's also an outlier circumstance.
Yeah. So we, if there's nobody claiming it, we do have an admin who gets a notification if it's sitting, is that what you're asking, Kyle?
Yeah,
There's
like if
something
someone just doesn't, like, you know, every now and then people order something and never pick them up.
Yeah, so we have there is functionality for the operations team. It's a pin access functionality. It allows you to do things like clear expired orders. There's actually a hamburger, like you press the hamburger menu, down comes a bunch of options. You can clean empty cubbies, meaning that if there's an order in there, you don't want it to pop open, but it'll open all the other empty cubbies so that you can clean them. So that's one of the things you can do with pin access. The other is what you had mentioned. If there's an order that's expired, you can clear expired orders. You put in your PIN code, you press the functionality, and it will open the expired orders. If there are no expired orders, it's not going to open anything. And there's other things that you can do in that PIN access operations menu. That's not really customer facing, but that addresses your question about what happens.
And then I guess the other question is like, okay, you're a pizza company that's, you know, that took an order the old fashioned way, with the phone call. Like, you know, can they slip the pizza into a cubby without being registered?
So yes, and yes. So I designed the cubby so that they can accept a certain size pizza, knowing that pizza is a huge part of delivery. There are some, I mean, pizza boxes get so enormous that there's actually probably no way we could design a cubby that would accept all food delivery, all pizza sizes.
Well, you maybe need a special pizza kind of element to the cubby, or the pizza add-on for.
I think so. I think if you were to ask me what we would make next to kind of augment or supplement what we've already created, which does kind of the lion's share of the work, we do get a fair bit of grocery delivery through our units. As you might imagine, that's a slightly different situation in terms of like bags. They have multiple bags and it takes up a bit more room. Our cubbies were sized based on actually we quantified through just watching and measuring food deliveries and seeing what DoorDash drivers are wearing on their backs, how big the cubbies should be. Because if it's a careful balance, like you don't want to make cubbies too large because then your capacity in the unit goes down. Mm-hmm. And if you make them too small, then the food deliveries don't fit. So you have to actually optimize. And we realize that if you look at these DoorDash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats delivery drivers, they have these backpacks. And so what we're doing is actually we're just part of that chain of custody. So if we see what they're carrying and what volume they have, then we can mimic that volume in our unit. And that's largely what we did. But to go back to the pizza question, we sized it so you can get a single personal pizza inside any of the cubbies. It turns out that a single, pizza isn't 12 inches by 12 inches, like they say. Like a 12-inch pizza, the box is actually bigger than 12 inches. So you actually have to do the hard work. You got to get the pizzas, you got to measure the boxes, you got to make sure that it fits, and we've done that.
Yeah. Would it ever be worth like having the pizza add-on option, as a?
I think so. I think that there could be a kind of, and we have had customers ask, like, if you were to make a delivery, like a grocery delivery unit, or maybe a pizza delivery unit, and I think maybe there's a hybrid.
I mean, it's like mailboxes, right? It's like, I'm in a place right now where we have the mailboxes, and if you get a package that's too big, like there's a key that comes in there that opens a special cupboard that's for these larger deliveries. And when you put that key and you open that one, you can't remove the key. Anyway, I could see smart mailboxes is probably also coming at some point, but for now, it works, but I'm not getting food delivered to the outside mailbox.
But I think you're right. I think there's opportunity to create a solution that works in concert with our current solution, maybe even plugs into the existing unit, that better addresses grocery delivery. We do a ton of grocery delivery today, but I think we could do it even better. And
so that's like Instacart. Like Instacart people are dropping off like
all the time. Yeah.
All the time.
Yep.
And
And
it's
they
like
go inside.
there's a hot or cold option, or like, do the cubbies, will they keep the food warm, or are they just insulated so it's like it's like a thermos, doesn't matter whether it's hot or cold?
It's the latter. So our early prototypes in the early days, we did build out a refrigerated version, but it's virtually impossible to pick apart whether, and a lot of times it's actually both, room temperature stuff inside of those orders or refrigerated milk plus something warm. So it's kind of like, do you increase unit cost to make this thing sealed? Remember, I said it was sealed early on, and that's because we refrigerated it. And the big driver in it, we realized we could make a vastly lower cost product that did the lion's share of what it needed to do, because the dwell time, because we've done hundreds of thousands of these deliveries and we know when it was dropped off and picked up. And these food deliveries, they only sit inside the cubby for about 13 minutes. So we're like, wait a minute, are we actually going to refrigerate this thing or heat it actively if it just sits in there for 13 minutes? And then again, we took a cue from the DoorDash and Grubhub and Uber Eats delivery drivers, and their backpacks are just insulated. So we said, you know what? We're going to make this thing only what it needs to be. And what it needs to be is insulated and nothing more.
And like looking at the actual image here, so like where my cursor is, that's a little LED screen. That's like, what people interact with, what drivers interact with.
Correct.
And does that represent, like, so if that's an 8 unit, so that means, is that like one not an actual unit? That's like the control one, and then the other one.
Yep. So what you're showing is the X series, and that X series has an 8 cubby capacity with an integrated touchscreen. We have, I believe it. Can you scroll down or yeah? Try going to the other model. It's called the Q series. There you go. So this, if you notice, it's got a landscape orientation of the screen. This is our latest model and is a lower cost. It's deeper, so it can accept Diet Coke fridge packs or whatever, ginger ale fridge packs for cans. And this also has an add-on unit, which we're now selling, which allows you to expand cubby capacity with another unit that looks exactly like what you're seeing without the touchscreen. It has a tether and it plugs into the back of this unit and expands cubby capacity really up to.
So it's like, so a business is like, you want this expanded solution, like 10 grand, you get 2 of these.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. And the beauty of that is this particular unit, we don't increase the monthly software and support fee if you buy an add-on unit, because it's just one SIM card that lives inside this control unit. We call the unit that has the touch screen, we call the control unit. And then you can get up to 2 add-on units, each with 8 cubby capacity, which we call add-on units.
And do you have any deployments of the 3 Qs?
So we have units that add-on units built and ready to ship, and we just started selling them. And I'm actually actively creating the user manual because that's the fun stuff I get to do.
Amazing. Wow. Well, Yona, I think like this kind of we're bringing to a close here, but what an awesome solution to a big problem you've created, and also it looks really good too. So well done, sir. Well done.
I appreciate it. It's a really important part of it. I think not only for me, because my background is in design, but it's also important for these properties. Like, it needs to be beautiful for us to get into the front lobby. If it's going to look like a locker, that a package locker, often you don't see in the front lobby, right? And there's a reason for that. It's like a big industrial thing that's not the most beautiful. We really needed to design something that was beautiful, that they're proud of. And I think we've done that. I'm excited about it. And thanks for the kind words, Kyle.
Yeah, indeed. And it's the website is getminnow.com.
Correct.
Get Minnow, and you guys are on X and LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere.
We are. Yep. So reach out to us if you're interested in learning more. I do demos. Our CEO, Andy Troxel, does demos, and we're happy to share with you, kind of walk you through the flow of what the software does in more detail, and kind of break down the pricing.
And do you have a
kind of
program for hustler ambassadors that want to get out there and sell units on your behalf?
We did for a while. It was like I think it was just a random draw. But I think we need to refresh that program because, and we need to figure out what I'd like to do is figure out a better way to celebrate them. It's tough times for them. And, ICE is all over the place and really, making it difficult on them. And I would really like to celebrate them.
Yeah. Well, again, it's like, they're literally, making, 5, 10, 15, $20 a delivery, like, somewhere in that range, and doing it nonstop. There's a way to, if they really love these pods, and there's are you a driver? Like, become an ambassador. And then, because they're the ones that are in there, here's a card. Here, we'll send you some cards, and like, get this obviously they're not going to do the whole sales thing. Like, they're basically like, top of funnel, like, point of contact to, potential landlords. Although there's many different ways to get in, but that could be a way to, to find, incentivize the hustle. And there's probably going to be a couple of them that, it might not be for everyone, but again, I know I was an Uber driver.
Oh, really?
There's lots of people. Yeah. I drove Uber for when my daughter was 1 year old, 2 years old. Yeah, I just drove around, and it was amazing. Like, I just met so many great people, and it was a way to, like, make a couple bucks, and not doing it anymore. But
yeah,
it's a stepping stone, and I think there's a lot of people, like, in the gig economy, like moms, like, I know the profile is out there all over the place, and so any way that you can, give other people an opportunity to participate in the value creation cycle, and recognizing how many apartment buildings are there in America?
Oh, geez. I honestly don't know, but one thing's for sure. If we get like even a couple percent of that, then we're off and flying. Like, it really is, for us right now, it's just about scaling and getting as many units out there. One thing I didn't mention that I think is worth mentioning that kind of is a testament to the solution. So at the end of so it's a year contract for the software and support fee, which is currently $99 a month. At the end of that year, they have an opportunity to renew. And we had in 2025 last year, a 98% renewal rate. So what that tells me is we've created something that our customers really value.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's like, 98%. That's, be curious why there's some people, like, what's the biggest knock? What's the biggest knock? Let's play devil's advocate. Like, what's the biggest criticism you guys get?
Great question. Well, I do know that the 2%, because we're like, wait a minute, what did the 2% do? Why aren't we 100%?
Yeah.
They sometimes there's just budget cuts, like it's out of their control, and they want to renew but cannot. And so it's a little like, oh, like there's not a whole lot we can do if they don't have the money to pay us. I would say that the biggest knock, this is the biggest knock. We don't generate revenue for the properties. So as far as amenities are concerned for these buildings, there's kind of three classes. There is where we are, which is we are an amenity like a Peloton bike. We have a monthly fee. You buy the bike, you pay the monthly fee, and then you use the bike to get fit and feel good. We're similar. You pay a one-time hardware fee, you pay a monthly software and support fee, you get to use it to show prospective tenants and show current community members that you care about them and that you have a system in place, and it helps. It does not create revenue for the building. So the mid-tier are net neutral amenities, meaning they don't cost the building anything. And the top tier are amenities where there's some rev share, meaning that not only do they not pay for it, but they actually make money on it.
Yeah.
And for us, we've thought about and tried to, we have some ideas. Like we believe, I believe that, as I mentioned, we have a couple units in hotels, and I think that's a huge opportunity for us. But hotels see food delivery almost constantly coming in and out of their buildings. And if you talk to enough of the GMs of these properties, they don't want them there, but they're also not making any money off of any of these food deliveries. So it's cannibalizing. If they have on premises, like some sort of food, like maybe they have breakfast or they have lunch or they have a bar at the hotel, these DoorDash orders are cannibalizing their on-site food businesses. And so what I'd really like to do, which is hard because the hospitality industry is notoriously conservative, but I believe if you install a Minnow Pod, you already have the guests' information, including their credit card information. If they're ordering DoorDash into your hotel, they should pay a $1.99 delivery fee for everyone that comes in. Mm-hmm. And then we split that we give $1 to the hotel and we keep $1. So we are trying to figure out ways to make it net neutral or net positive, but we aren't there yet. And that's the biggest knock, I would say.
And I imagine too, there's probably like financing facilities for businesses to purchase these. Like, I bought a ski pass this year and I used a firm and was able to make payments over time. Like, is there something similar? Do you have that cooked for businesses? Because, it might be a hard, one-time fee, but, if you put it into the schedule.
Yeah, we don't get a lot of pushback in terms of like the one-time hardware cost. We keep it intentionally low because, as I said earlier, we're trying to scale. And so we're just trying to, we don't make these units for a whole lot less than what we charge people for. And what's more important to us is getting them out there. But we're not getting a lot of pushback on the $44.99 that we're asking customers to pay. It's really below a $5K threshold in their property management or regional manager budget. It's when you start to get a lot more expensive where it becomes a problem. But these are, it's like a Peloton bike for them. It's not really outlandish. Like, in my eyes, everybody should buy one. It's just, it's just obvious.
Just a quick query. There's like they estimate between 30 to 100,000, 100 unit plus buildings in America. So it's like, there's a lot. There's a lot. Let's just figure out how do you get the distribution into them. Make Minnow the understood, like, oh yeah, that's the pod for food delivery and groceries, and yeah, it's the best. And bring peace of mind to myself when I'm eating the food, knowing that nobody's fondled my fries, and also knowing that nobody's messed with my groceries, and that because if you put an Instacart order and someone just comes along and is like, oh look, there's some milk, Bloop. Now that's like, where did that milk go? How? The provenance and the chain of custody is also really important. So, it is. This has been fantastic. Great job. Get Minnow.
Kyle, thanks for having me, Kyle. Yeah, anytime.
Let's grow.
I can see your. It's really special that you actually were a food delivery driver, and so that I think I can see by the excitement in your voice that and you see this sometimes when you install. You can see in the people's expressions that they're like, finally, they're like, this is obvious. This is a beautiful solution to a problem that is pervasive. And thank you. And it takes some it's not always as obvious to those who haven't actually lived the experience, but you have, and I appreciate your support and encouragement.
I didn't food delivery. I was a driver, so I did the
Oh, okay.
driving, but still gig economy work. But I know a lot of people that have done that, and you know, and again, like that's just there's a bunch of like hustlers out there, like, you know, where it's like, you know, these are kind of like jobs of, I don't want to say jobs of last resort, but like, you know, if you're in a pickle, there's always, you know, the opportunity to do that. You don't need to have a great car, you know, sometimes you just have a motorcycle, sometimes you have a bike, you know, there's different iterations based on where you are. But anyways, there's like, you know, I think they're like you said, they're the champions in this, you know, in this realm. They're the ones that are going to be having the most touch point interface with it. So whatever, celebrating them. But I want to celebrate you too, Yona. Amazing work, you know, congratulations on getting to 700,000 deliveries through the system, to, you know, 200 plus installs. Let's get to 1,000 plus installs, get to 1 million deliveries, then 10 million, then 100 million, and soon we'll be going after McDonald's for burgers served. Let's go. Have a great day, Yona. Thank you.
All right, Kyle. Thank you.
All right. Cheers, everybody. This has been the Golden Convergence. Let's go. Let's grow.